Welcome back to the DSR channel, and I'm going over everything in the new book, Eberron, Forge of the Artificer, which got a lot of cool stuff, some great content, some good mechanics, some not so good mechanics, but also some really good faction stuff, right? We get new faction stuff, new bastion stuff, new vehicles. So I'm going to be covering all those. I'm going to do factions and just really touch lightly on the houses in this video so that it's not super long like my last two videos. All right, let's get into it. So you can see that the houses of the Eberron setting are the factions, right? Those are the major factions. There's a few others uh, that other than this list, and I'm not going to get into those today. But it's House Canaith, Denaith, and correct me in the comments if I'm getting any of these wrong. House Galanda, House Durasco, House Kundarak, House Larandar, House Medani, House Orion, House Fiarlan, House Civis, House Tharask, House Thurani, and House Vidalis. Um, and these are all associated with a dragon mark, or in one case, or in case of two of these houses, two of these are associated with the same dragon mark, the mark of shadow, if I recall correctly. So there's a lot of lore, and this all ties into like the origin myth, creation myth of this campaign setting, where the dragon marks originated from, and then the houses all came about because of the dragon marks. So a lot of really interconnected stuff that's very cool and flavorful. But we're gonna zoom in on some mechanics, okay? So, and this section is very cool. If you play with Renown, they've got this section here, which is recommendations to gain Renown based on different factors from your background to feats, okay? So House Agent, that is a background that's from, the previous books. I'm pretty sure it's Eberron Rising from the Last War. If not, it's the other one, but I think it's Eberron Rising from the Last War. This background appeared in that book, and if you have this, then you start with a renown score of 3 with your house. Okay. If you start with the background House Heir, which appears in this book, and I'll go over those backgrounds too in another video, then you start with a renown score of 5. Okay, which is a big starting point. Then a dragon mark feat. Acquiring a dragon mark feat, which are the level 1 equivalent, sorry, the origin equivalent feats. After level 1, note it says that, then you gain you gain 1 renown score with that house, right? And that's because if you are House Heir and started with that feat, then you're already at 5. So this is getting it without the background. You get a bump of 1. You can only ever have one of them. You cannot have 2 dragon mark feats. So you either get the start with the background, you get a 5, or you don't start with the background and you get a bump of 1 later. All right, then if you acquire a greater dragon mark feat, your renown increases with that house by 2. And then if you acquire the Sybaris dragon mark, um, or another feat of the epic boon category that represents a Sybaris dragon mark, because there is a note there that says your DM, you can work with your DM to take a different epic boon and call that a Sybaris dragon mark too. Okay, so you could say have a martial character and you really want combat prowess, and you could just work with the DM and say, hey, can I count that as a Sybaris dragon mark? And if the DM agrees, then it does. And so in that case, you get this bonus as well, which is a renown score increase of 3 with the house associated, right? Because some of the houses are like some of those Sybaris dragon marks are associated with a regular dragon mark and therefore a house, one of these house factions. So work with the DM to sort that out. And then an aberrant dragon mark, acquiring any aberrant dragon mark reduces a character's renown score with each dragon marked house by 2. So you lose renown because all of the established houses that are all associated with non-aberrant dragon marks dislike you. Okay, they dislike the aberrant dragon marks. Okay, now let's talk perks. So they've got a what I would call a probably more simplified version of factions in this book than what we saw in the Heroes of Faerun, but I like this one better. Yeah, I do. That one was more complicated and I think less powerful. All right, and that is the two best things to optimize for. You want the least complicated thing you can make and the most useful and valuable thing you can make, right? Not ultimate power, but you want it to be useful. And a lot of that stuff in the Heroes of Faerun was just like complicated and kind of useless. Like it just didn't mean anything, or it was like only a plot story device. So I like the execution here better. All right. So and with Renown, you can only ever join one faction as a member. That's like a general rule, but of course the DM can override that. So while you can gain renown with multiple factions, if they're not rivals, like it's hard to gain renown with two rivals. If they're not rivals, you could gain renown with multiple factions, but you only ever join one of them, and you'll therefore only ever get the faction renown benefits from one of them. Work with your DM if you want to do something different. And of course, DMs can change that if they like. So at Renown 3 with a Dragon Marked house, you gain 3 benefits. A Dragon Marked member of the house casts a cantrip for you or a level 1 spell associated with the house's mark. That's from the spell list that appears on the Dragon Mark feats, right? At no cost. Or a member of the house casts for you a different spell of level 3 or lower at half the usual cost. And the Dungeon Master's Guide has recommendations on how much hirelings would charge for casting spells. So refer back to that. Or the house provides a service or item associated with its business at reduced or no cost. See suggestions in the house's descriptions later in the chapter. So there's suggestions there for what kind of businesses each house is associated with and what kind of services or products they might offer you. And you can request such a favor a number of times equal to your current renown score. So if you just hit 3, then you can request this favor 3 times. If your renown score falls below the total number of favors you have requested, a higher ranking member of the house might call in a favor from you, sending you on a mission for the house or personal business. And this is nice because it scales up, right? So when you have 3, you can request it 3 times. And when you gain or achieve renown 4, you can now request a 4th favor, not 4 more favors. Your total number of favors is still 4. So if somehow you go over that or your renown drops, some higher ranking member of the house is going to call in a favor from you to kind of pay it back. In addition, your house pays you a stipend that supports your modest lifestyle, which is worth 1 gold piece a day. Okay? All right. Recognized in-house. This is renown score 10 with a dragon marked house. When you request a favor, it can take one of the following forms. 3 bullet points. A dragon marked member of the house casts for you a level 2 spell associated with the house's mark at no cost. A member of the house casts for you a spell of a different spell of level 4 or lower at half the usual cost. And whenever you take a bastion turn, you can issue an order to your house as if it were a special facility in your bastion. Your house determines the type of special facility available to you as noted in each house's description later in this chapter. So that's very cool. You get an extra bonus special facility, functions like a special facility for your bastion without actually you taking one of your bastion special facility slots. And I'm going to cover that today later in this video of each house and what those 2 benefits might be. And now you get a better lifestyle, which is comfortable, 2 gold pieces a day. All right, celebrated in-house. This requires a renown of 25 or higher, renown with that house faction. And when you call in the favors, it can take one of these forms. A dragon marked member of the house casts for you a level 3 or 4 spell associated with the house's mark at no cost. A member of the house casts for you a different spell of level 6 or lower at half cost. You gain a bodyguard for the duration of your next mission for the house, maximum of 1 week. So it has to be a mission for the house. The bodyguard, a creature with a challenge rating no higher than half your level, is appropriate to your house. Okay, so whatever that means, work with the DM to figure that out. But it's a challenge rating half your level. In addition, your house stipend increases to support your wealthy lifestyle by 4 gold pieces a day. This is so much simpler than the Heroes of Faerun version. And again, I think it's more effective. So I love this one. I wish they just use this as a model for Heroes of Faerun. And, WotC, if you're listening, use this as the model for all future factions that you do. Just like this. All right. At faction renown 50, you're now preeminent in the house. And when you request a favor, you can take one of the following additional forms. A dragon marked member of the house casts for you a level 5 spell associated with the house's mark at no cost. There's a pattern here. A member of the house casts for you a different spell of level 8 or lower at half the usual cost. So that just scales up, right? Those 2 benefits are the same, and they just scale up as you gain more renown. In addition, your house stipend increases to support your aristocratic lifestyle, which is worth 10 gold pieces a day. Pretty nice. And here they have some suggestions for different party makeups and how to deal with parties and factions. I'm going to breeze over. I'm going to skip it. I wanted to show it so that it's there, but I'm not going to cover it because it's like DM advice type stuff. And I'm trying to stick to the player option content for this video. But that's great stuff. I would look at it because dealing with multiple players who may or may not choose the same faction can be really complicated. It's a complex topic. So look at it for ideas before you jump into this. It also has suggestions for like adventure type related things, plot type related things. You know, do you have rival houses? There's House Tarkanan, which is a criminal organization that's organized around aberrant dragon mark. So it's kind of like the aberrant dragon mark house, although it's not recognized as a dragon marked house. And then there's a thing called the Chamber, which are related to dragons, and this thing called the Draconic Prophecy. So a lot of cool stuff here for you to mine as a DM that you can get ideas for and to, you know, lean into your adventures with Eberron, which, you know, I think you can cherry pick a lot of this stuff and still use it for your other campaign settings too, right? Like just rename it and you got stuff for your other campaign setting, which is awesome. By the way, Tarkanan, is it just me or does that sound very much like House Harkonnen from Dune? And they were the bad guys there too, a criminal organization. So could be. I don't know. Then they have this like mapped out for you rival houses, which is awesome. So having factions with rivalries is really important to making the factions feel more alive, feel more real, and more interesting to your players. And one way to lean into that, that they don't recommend here, they don't put this in here, but I would recommend this is one way to just make that meaningful in a very simple way is when they do a quest for one house, and gain renown with that one house, they would lose renown with the rival. Okay, so as you're becoming more and more well liked and respected by this one house that you're helping, the rival dislikes you more and more because you're working against them. So that's a very simple way to make that a meaningful impact for your players without you having to do a ton of extra work as a DM to, you know, write more stories than what's already there. Now, if you're one of those DMs that are writing the stories and being, you know, creative story writing and creative storytelling is the thing that's easy for you, then awesome. You don't need that advice. Go ahead and just lean all the way into that. In fact, lean all the way into that, and then share that with us, the mechanical types who are just good with the mechanics, and the creative storytelling is this part we struggle with. So put together your thoughts on that. Maybe you make a video, share it with me. That'd be great. All right, so there's the house rivalries, other different suggestions, you know, kind of high level plot, adventure kind of suggestions there. All right, I'm going to kind of breeze over all of that. And now we're going to get into the mechanical details. And there's more information here on each house. It describes what the house is about, what their goals are, how their dragon mark relates to the house. And this is really a primer on lore, which, like I said in my other videos, is great for people like me, right? I love primers on lore because it gives me a high level idea of what's there without overwhelming me with pages and pages and pages of lore. And then when I go back and like it becomes relevant, then I do go deep dive into all of the lore that's available, which would be mostly in the two previous books we got on Eberron, which is the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron and Eberron Rising from the Last War. That's where you're going to get the deep dives on the lore. So this is your primer, and then when you need more, go to those two books. Okay, House Cannith. So House Cannith is the one associated with the Mark of Making. All right. Again, primer on lore there, and we're going to skip down to this section, put it in the middle of the screen right here, which talks about the mechanical benefits as a player option related to the faction for this house. All right. So when you reach Renown of 3, you can purchase one common or uncommon magic item at half the usual cost. And when you reach Renown 10, when you take a bastion turn, you can use the craft order. You can issue the craft order to House Cannith as if it were a smithy or workshop facility in your bastion. So you get a free smithy or workshop. And those are great. Those are really good facilities to have. If you're a level 9 or higher, you can instead treat the house as a laboratory facility. So this one's really strong. Wow, that surprises me how good that one is. All right, then House Denaith, I think is how it's said. This was the one associated with the Mark of Sentinel. And House Denaith at Renown 3, you can request the assistance of 1d4 plus 1 mercenaries for up to 1 day. The mercenaries are medium guards. I assume that means medium-sized guards. Yeah, because they can be medium or small. All right, so medium-sized guards. It's a CR 1/8 stat block, so not very strong. And then when you reach Renown 10, when you take a bastion turn and you can issue the recruit order to a barracks facility in your bastion. So you have to have the barrack facility. You can recruit up to 12 bastion defenders instead of 4, which if you are level 9 or higher, you and your allies you and any of your allies' choice can train in a House Denaith facility as if it were a training area facility within your bastion, using the Empower order with a trainer of your choice. So these are quite good. They're not like entirely new facilities. There is a section on entirely new facilities, and I'm going to cover that in a separate video. But these facilities for these factions are not new at all. But what it's doing is giving you, just referring to existing faction facilities, and they're quite useful, right? And they upgrade, right? It's not just one. You're not just stuck with one option. You've got multiple options. Now this one, so the barrack is rules as written in the Dungeon Master's Guide 2024. The barrack is the worst facility. It is really bad. So unless your DM tweaks a few things, that's not a good one to get. I mean, it's one that's a great fantasy to have. The problem with the barrack, as written in the Dungeon Master's Guide, is that your defenders only matter when a bastion event occurs, and bastion events only occur if you don't issue orders. Okay? So if you can't contact your bastion or travel there during a bastion turn, then you issue maintenance orders to all the facilities and you roll for a bastion event. Even worse for the barracks is that there's only a 5% chance that you're attacked, and that's the most meaningful time when the defenders matter. There's like one other event where you don't get the benefit if you don't have a defender. So only when you can't communicate with your bastion does a bastion event occur, and there's only like a 10% chance total that your defenders matter. And your defenders only like so. And what happens if you're attacked and don't have defenders is that one of your bastion facilities is just taken out of commission for one bastion turn. So it's like spending a bastion facility slot on a barracks every turn to get the benefit of not losing one bastion facility one turn, which will rarely happen. So you come out way ahead if you just don't take the barrack, get something else that's more useful as a bastion facility. And if it gets attacked and you lose its functionality one round or for one bastion turn, like once or twice in a campaign, that's less than spending every bastion turn during the campaign, or that's less bad than spending every bastion turn of your campaign with a barrack being that does nothing but provide defenders that do nothing. So, all right, talk with your DM, see if he tweaks it, see if he or she tweaks how they do bastion events. If they don't tweak it at all, just don't get I don't know, it's not worth it to get a barracks. And certainly it's not even worth it to get a barracks just to activate this feature, right? Because the barracks maximum capacity for defenders is 12. So you just fill it up in one turn instead of 3 turns. Now you can pay to upgrade your bastion, and then it holds 25 people. But unless they tweak it, that's so not worth it. That's like doubling down on the pain of the barracks. Okay, all right, no more on that. Barracks isn't good unless your DM tweaks it. The training facility though is quite good. So I would say House Denaith isn't overall bad. It's just as far as the mechanics go, it's just at level 9, it's a lot better. So that one's nice. House Galanda. House Galanda is associated with the Mark of Hospitality. Your faction renown benefits are at 3. Faction renown 3. You and your party can stay at House Galanda a House Galanda Inn. So there's multiple for 30 days without charge, meals included. So I guess you could just pocket the stipend you're receiving from your faction, which isn't a lot, but it's something. And then at faction renown 10, when you take a bastion turn, you can issue the harvest order to House Galanda as if it were a garden facility, which has to be a food garden, unfortunately. So you can't use this to craft poison or healing potions for you. But the food garden is just money. So I guess you get the proceeds from the money that's being sold, and it makes like 50 gold pieces per turn, I think is what it comes out to. So better than a stick in the eye. Depends on how often your DM issues bastion orders. If it's once per session, 50 gold pieces a session is quite a bit. If it's less than that, then it's less valuable. All right, and when you're level 13, you can instead issue the research order to House Galanda as if it were a pub facility. The research order to the pub is pretty limited. All it does is let you like locate a known a known creature, like a creature you have to know their name. They have to be a unique named creature, and they have to be within 50 miles, I want to say, of your pub. And then the pub research will find them and tell you their location after a week. That rarely comes up in a campaign. Not every campaign does that even come up. So that's meh. House Jarasco. This is the one associated with the Mark of Healing. So this is one of the better feats, the Mark of Healing. And the benefits you get are you can purchase with Renown 3, you can purchase one healing potion, any variety, at half the usual cost. Note that it doesn't say how often you can do that. I think that that's going to be tied to your favors. So you can only, so this counts as a favor to purchase one of those. Okay, so there's a limit on it and half the usual cost. That's a decent benefit, right? Potion of greater healing, potion of superior healing, potion of, what's the top level one? Greater, superior. I forget the top level one. The the very rare one. Anyway, that's decent. Okay. Then when you have 10 renown, when you take a bastion turn, you can issue the harvest order to House Jarasco as if it were a garden facility, another garden facility. This one is the herb garden. And I think that one lets you get healing potions or an antitoxin. So that's decent. If you're level 9 or higher, you can instead issue the harvest order to House Jarasco as if it were a greenhouse facility, which means now you can get, and the greenhouse facility allows you, or it will create potions of greater healing for you. And I think it'll create different kinds of poisons. And they're decent poisons. Like it's the poisons that can cost up to like 300 or 400 gold pieces. So the greenhouse facility, pretty good. And that's level 9 plus, which I think is when you first get access to the greenhouse as well. So this is like a free greenhouse for you. So the garden facility, herb garden, is one of the better ones at level 5, and a level 9 greenhouse facility is one of the better ones at level 9 too. So this is solid. Yeah, that's a nice benefit they get. Okay, House Kundarak. This is the house associated with the Mark of Warding. And at Renown 3, you can store something in a Kundarak vault for up to 1 month at no charge. The vault is an extra dimensional space accessible with the proper keys from any Kundarak bank in Corvair and is generally considered impenetrable. I guess it takes one favor every time you want to store it for a month. A month can be a long time in a campaign. Like that could be a lot of sessions. Or depending on how your DM handles downtime, that might be very little time. But this is probably generally better than like Leomund's tiny hut. Sorry, not the tiny hut. Secret chest, right? And that's a level 5 spell. So this is better than that if you need to store something securely. And note that you can get it from any Kundarak bank in Corvair, which is the continent. And they have banks all over the place, so you can store it here and access it at a totally different city over there. Kind of cool. Pretty useful if you need to like move some sort of like really large sized heavy, like it's unreasonably large and heavy for you to like just carry on your person. So you store it in the bank and you need to get it to this other location. Well, you just store it in the bank vault, you go to that location and then retrieve it there without you having to like travel with this thing in a wagon. Pretty cool. Not super powerful, but pretty cool as a plot device. All right. Renown 10. When you take a bastion turn, you can issue the trade order to House Kundarak as if it were a storehouse facility in your bastion. Use your level to determine the maximum value of items purchased and the profit you get from selling them. Okay, the storehouse is the number one moneymaker of all the facilities. So that's great. That's great. Wow. That is surprisingly good. All right, House Lyrendar. This is the house associated with the Mark of Storm. And at Renown 3, you can secure passage on a House Lyrendar sailing ship for yourself and your party at no cost, or on an elemental galleon or airship for half the usual price. That's okay. A little more convenient fast travel for you. Eberron, that's one of the things that's cool about Eberron. They've got this whole built-in fast travel system. If you're familiar with like MMOs, yeah, it has fast travel built into it, which is cool, right? It can, really make a campaign move along faster. Although it depends on how your DM handles fast travel. They might handle it that way anyway. Even if it takes you a month to get there, it still happens in the blink of an eye for the players. All right, Renown 10. When you take a bastion turn and issue the harvest order to a garden facility in your bastion, House Lyrendar can manipulate the weather to double your harvest. If you are level 9 or higher, you can issue the recruit order to House Lyrendar as if it were a teleportation circle facility within your bastion, except that the spellcaster arrives at a bastion via an airship. Okay, doubling the output of a garden that you have is good. especially at level 5. That's a good level 5 feature, good level 5 facility. It starts to drop off though, because the greenhouse is a much better upgraded version at level 9 that you can get access to, and this doesn't enhance the greenhouse, it's only the garden. So that's a bummer that it falls off. And then it switches over to being a teleportation circle, which is not one of the better, not one of the better facilities at level 9. It's got some uses, and unfortunately, it doesn't actually give you the teleportation circle, because having the teleportation circle is better than the orders you can issue to the teleportation circle, if that makes sense. Because a teleportation circle in your bastion means you can use the spell teleportation circle to teleport to it. It's an automatic permanent teleportation circle in your bastion. And that alone is the most valuable part of having that facility in your bastion. But you don't get that benefit. It just says you can issue the recruit order as if it were a teleportation circle, and they don't arrive via teleportation circle, they arrive via an airship. And that recruit order of the teleportation circle is not very good. Like, you have a 50% chance of getting nothing. And if somebody comes, it's just like a wizard, and they will cast a spell for free for you. There's not many spells on the wizard spell list that are useful that they cast for you when you're not, and they won't go adventuring with you at all, right? So they'll just cast it at your bastions. So there's just not very many spells that qualify as useful with all those limitations. I'm sure creative people can make this, can make that, can break it probably, make it OP, like using the fabricate spell or something. But yeah, for the most players, it's not very valuable. House Medani. And House Medani is the house associated with the mark of detection. And when you have Renown 3 with House Medani, you can secure overnight lodging in a Medani safe house for yourself and your party. Secreted away under the house's protection, you become almost impossible to find by non-magical means. That's going to be up to your DM to implement that. And my advice to DMs would be lean into it, right? They're spending one of their precious favors with their house to be undetectable for an overnight, right? A single overnight, right? So I would let them have it. No random encounters. You can just delay whoever, if they're being chased by somebody, which is the reason you'd use this, let them get a day free, right? Because of this. Because that's the only benefit they get. All right. And at Renown 10, when you take a Bastion turn, you can issue the research order to House Medani as if it were a library facility in your Bastion. The library is not one of the better ones. I tweak it so that I give players lore points that they can just earn from the library. And then you can spend those later when you want to learn something. And just disconnecting that makes it a lot better, because in the moment when they have to take the Bastion turn, it's not very often the player's like, oh, here is this piece of information I want to know right now. And so a lot of times they're just like, I don't know, waste it. Research dogs, you know. So if you can just disconnect those so they earn lore points and then can spend them later, and the spend later just happens instantly. So now, like, I think I limit it and say you can just spend it when you're not in the middle of a session. Okay, so you can't be like, oh, we're about to fight a white dragon, like we're combat just started a white dragon, spend a lore point and give me all the information on a white dragon. No, guys, it doesn't. It has to be between sessions. But then they can later, when they identify information they want to have, they can then spend it, and that makes the library way more valuable. Like, I actually have players who often take the library because of that, and then they accumulate their lore points and spend them later, even often after they swapped out the library and no longer have it. They've just accumulated some lore points they can spend later, which doesn't make sense logically, right? But this is a game. We're not simulating real life. This is just a game, okay? Making the game fun is the point of the game. All right. When you are level 13 or higher, you can instead issue the research order to the house as if it were a pub facility. And I talked about that one previously. The pub research order is bad. It's really disappointing. So that's actually a bad upgrade. Now, note that it says you instead can, so you don't have to. You can still treat it as a library, which I probably would, especially if you use the lore point system. All right. House Orion. House Orion is the house that's associated with the Mark of Passage. That's one of the better feats. And at Renown 3, you can secure transportation for yourself and your party by any means House Orion provides, which is caravan, lightning rail, or teleportation for half the usual cost. Pretty sweet. Renown 10, when you take a Bastion turn, you can issue the trade order to House Orion as if it were a storehouse facility in your Bastion, using your level to determine the maximum value of items purchased and the profit from selling them. So again, Just like the previous one that allowed that, this is quite strong. The storehouse is a very strong one. If you're level 9, you can instead issue the recruit order to House Orient as if it were a teleportation circle facility within your bastion. And I talked about that, how that's bad. That is not a good order, bastion order. So I would stick with the storehouse for sure. Also because the storehouse itself upgrades in level. And it says it's tied to your level, which is how the bastion, how that just base bastion facility works, right? It upgrades based on your level. So it can earn you at level 5 like 50 gold pieces per bastion turn, and when you hit level 9, it upgrades to like 200 gold pieces per turn. At level 13, it's like 500 gold pieces per turn, and at level 17, it's in fact the level 13 number I might be remembering wrong. It upgrades a lot at level 13 and even more at level 17. So it gets to be a lot of money. All right, like it's just your money maker. So I would just keep using the storehouse the whole time. All right, that was good. House Fjarlin. This is the house associated with the Mark of Shadow, which is one of my favorite ones, lore-wise and flavor-wise. It's not one of the more powerful ones, but it is fun for flavor and lore. I mean, it's good. The Dragon Mark is good for power, as all the Dragon Marks are. The greater Dragon Marks, very mixed bag there. And that was one of the worst ones for the greater Dragon Mark. But the base Dragon Mark is great. All right, Renown 3. You can purchase 1 dose of poison of any kind or other illegal item, such as stolen goods, at half price. Cool. There are some poisons that are quite strong and quite expensive. So, like the carrion crawler poison, the purple worm poisons, those are very strong. And the purple worm is like 2,000 gold pieces per dose. So, buying that at half price, pretty good. At Renown 10, when you take a Bastion turn, you can issue the craft order to House Fjarlin as if it were a workshop facility in your Bastion. The workshop is a good one because at level 9, it can make uncommon level magic items for you, and it's like everything but armor and weapons. So it's pretty good. At level 9, you can instead issue the Empower order to the house as if it were a theater facility. And that is the theater one is one of the more complex and weaker Bastion facilities. But to sum it all up, it's you jump through all these hoops. It's multi-step hoops for multiple Bastion turns. And once you get through all the hoops, what you get is a single Bastion die. Sorry, it's a theater die, is what they call it. And that theater die works like a bardic inspiration die. So you have it for like 1 week or something like that. I can't remember if you get it in longer. It might be until you take your next Bastion turn, or it might be 2 Bastion turns. Maybe it's indefinite, but you get 1 die, and it gets consumed when you use it, so it's expended. So you have 1 theater die. It's a D. I want to say it's a D8. It might be a D6. No, I think it's a D8, and it can boost 1d20 roll, just like a bardic inspiration can. So, but it takes you 2 Bastion turns to activate it, a minimum of 2 Bastion turns. So yeah, you're not going to have it very often. But if you really, really, really need to pass, like there's important ability checks that come up periodically, or saving throws, right? You can boost a saving throw with it. Yeah, that's a way to add to it. And it stacks with a bardic inspiration. So even though you have a bard in the party, don't think that doesn't add value. Like get both, and you can have that plus bardic inspiration to just make sure you really, really pass that one critical thing. Yeah. Anyway, level 13, you can now instead issue the research order to the house as if it were a pub facility, which I've discussed is bad. So don't do that one. The theater is better than the pub. Sorry, the theater orders is better than the pub's orders. Okay, the pub is great, but the pub's Bastion orders are not good. And the workshop is solid, right? Just pumping out uncommon magic items for you is a very good thing, and it's good. So House Civis. This is the house associated with the Mark of Scribing. And at Renown 3, you can obtain translation or messaging service of the House Civis at no charge. That has never, ever come up as being valuable ever, right? Players, like, if they need that, they've got Comprehend Languages as a ritual. They've got it as scrolls. People have the Helm of Comprehend Languages. That's always the backup, right? People always have access to that. I've never been in a situation where somebody didn't have access to that, needed to translate something like critically. I can't see this ever coming up, so that's a bummer. I don't know. If your players, as a DM, your players choose this, lean into it, help them out, make it worthwhile somehow. Renown 10. When you take a bastion turn, you can issue the craft order to the House Civis as if it were an arcane study facility in your bastion, which is nice because at level 9, that crafts magic items for you, uncommon level magic items. If you're level 9 and higher, you can instead issue the craft order to the house as if it were a scriptorium, which is also really good because that allows them to craft first through third level cleric and wizard scrolls for you. Very good. All right, so they got a banger at Renown 10 and a pretty bad one at Renown 3. House Tharashk. House Tharashk is the house associated with the Mark of Finding. And at Renown 3, you can purchase a Dragon Shard, which is it's like a material, a special material component, not necessarily a spell component, but a special material, I guess is the way to put it, that's only relevant in the Eberron campaign setting. Okay, so that is a specific thing, and it has specific value. In fact, I think there's even like some spells unique to that campaign setting that require that as a material component, but there's also like magic item crafting I think you can do with that specific component, and there's other things you can do with it. Also, it's quite valuable, so you can just sell it. Or you can purchase one common or uncommon magic item that incorporates dragon shards. There you go. At half the usual cost. Alternatively, you can request the assistance of a mercenary from Drome, which I don't know. I think, is that a nation? It might be. For up to 1 day. Which can be a harpy, an ogrelon ogre, a spy, or a thrycreen marauder. And an ogrelon ogre, I think, is the highest CR of all of those. Then at Renown 10, you can take a bastion turn and issue the recruit order to a barrack facility in your bastion. You can recruit up to 12 bastion defenders instead of 4, so this is the very same as the previous one, and it's not good. It's not good. In addition, if you are level 9, you can issue the research order to House Tharashk as if it were a trophy room facility within your bastion. The trophy room is okay because you can get these trinkets that act like what is it called? The supernatural charms, right? They act like charms that you can get. And it's a good option to have because charms last indefinitely once you acquire them, but you can only have each specific charm once. So if you roll the same charm, and I think you get to choose, like you have a 50% chance of getting nothing and a 50% chance of getting a charm. And when you get the charm, you can choose the charm you get. So just choose and get one of each. I think there's 3 options. So get all 3 because then you can keep each 3 and they last until you use them, whether it's a day later, a week later, or a year later in your campaign. It's never a bad thing to have extra charms built up on your character. So that one's pretty decent. The barracks part, not good. House Thorani. This is the house associated with the Mark of Shadow. And so this is, like I noted previously, there are 2 houses associated with Mark of Shadow. Now we've covered both of them, right? So this is not a duplicate house, but it's another house with the same mark. And I think they fight with each other. I haven't read into all the details yet. All right, I'm pretty sure they're rivals. All right, Renown 3. You can purchase 1 dose of poison of any kind or other illegal items, such as stolen goods at half price, so same as the previous one. And when you take a bastion turn, you can issue the craft order to House Thorani as if it were a workshop facility, same as the previous one. If you are in level 9 or higher, you can issue the empower order to the house as if it were a theater facility, same as the previous. And when you're level 13, you can issue the research order to the house as if it were a pub facility, same as the previous one. That's like all of that's identical. Bit of a lazy miss there on that one to just like rubber stamp copy it. Carbon copy. That's the word I was looking for. You just carbon copy it. Okay, you could have tried a little harder to tweak it and make it a little different. House Vidalis, which is the last of the houses. House Vidalis is the house associated with the Mark of Handling. And at Renown 3, you can purchase any animal for half the usual cost, like a mount, or you can secure free food and stabling for animals owned by you and your party for up to 1 week. Not bad. They do eat like I don't remember if the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide has a recommendation for how much creatures eat based on their size, but the 2014 did, and it was like large eat 4 times as much as a medium-sized creature, and huge eats like 16 times as much as a medium-sized creature, and gargantuan eats 64 times as much. That sounds a little high, but it was like a multiplier 4 each time you went up, so that can get spendy. Renown 10. When you take a bastion turn, you can issue the research order to House Vidalis as if it were a library facility in your bastion, as long as the topic of research is some kind of living creature. Kind of disappointing if you don't play with like the lore points like I described. Even then, it's limiting. You'd have to note the lore points as being these lore points can only be used for researching living creatures. In addition, when you issue the recruit order to a menagerie facility on your bastion, you can pay half the usual cost for the creature you acquire. That it can be kind of cool because the menagerie allows you to get beasts and monstrosities. I want to say, if I recall correctly, up to a CR2, I think, and you pay half to get those. If you like having like those things built up and try to like have them follow you, like train them so they follow you around and can be like hirelings in your party, the DM may allow you to do that. You might be able to use them as mounts. It's a cool way to get stronger mounts than what you could otherwise get access to because even the warhorse is not very tough. So the menagerie is kind of cool, and so that's a decent benefit. All right, that is all of the faction mechanics they put in this with the intersection of the house mechanics related to factions. Okay, so thanks for watching. Remember to be cool when you play D&D with your friends or people who might become your friends. Okay, because this is a game; it's for fun. Catch you next time.